We did a real long-term forever bazaar. If you show to your company, let's go talk about it.
Well, the first part of the question was I wanted to see science fiction in Johannesburg. That was the reason for the whole film existing in the first place. So it had to take place in Johannesburg. And because I wanted science fiction in Joburg, there's a certain amount of science fiction staples that you can use, like aliens arriving to Earth. Humans traveling into outer space is another staple idea, but then I wouldn't have Johannesburg. So Johannesburg came first, and the idea of wanting to see science fiction in that third world setting. And in terms of understanding the aliens and the humans understanding one another, South Africa's got like 11 official languages, and you'll very often see people communicating in one language, and the person that they're communicating with will hear them and then will respond in a different language, like a black language or Afrikaans, or like 7 or 8 staple black languages. So it was a play on that idea, and Shalto's character as Vickers would, as an Afrikaans bureaucrat like that in the 1980s, you would probably see that kind of thing happening. I mean,
yeah, I think that that's where Neil's idea comes from. Practically, what it is, from my character's point of view, is he can understand their language because they've been there for a very long time, but he cannot actually make the sounds that they make because it's a very complicated sound. Your vocal cords couldn't make that sound. So even if my character wanted to, he couldn't really speak their dialect. And the same with them in return.
In answer to your first question, it is not just an analogy to apartheid. There's many sort of metaphors and analogies to lots of different things. The biggest one probably is apartheid and the idea of separation. That's the biggest thing that I think affected me when I was a kid in South Africa. It was the idea of the white government keeping blacks separate, and just it affected me, but only in a sheltered white way, and obviously had a much larger effect on the black population, but I still was aware of it. But something that plays almost an equally big role in the film is the idea of black-on-black xenophobia, which is modern-day contemporary South Africa. And it's poor, poverty-stricken blacks in the slums, and they're South African, who want the poor Zimbabwean illegal immigrants out of their slums. And that very much plays into the movie, because it's one poverty-stricken group that wants another group gone, which is the reason in the movie that they want District 9 cleared and moved somewhere else. And then in terms of, I mean, Terry can talk about this now as well, but in terms of my sort of influences and where I was drawing from, it's interesting that you say Spielberg. No one's ever said that to me before, and I haven't really actually thought of anything that Spielberg's done having influenced the film.
E.T.
E.T.? Yeah, okay.
A little lately, yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's true, yeah, bad E.T. E.T. the carjacker. But for me, it's James Cameron's Aliens was the biggest influence on me when I was a child. And I was obsessed with that film, and Ridley Scott's Alien to a certain degree. And then as I got older, it was Blade Runner in 2001 and the kind of science fiction staples, but not really Spielberg. I love Spielberg's films, but not in terms of science fiction and them influencing me. It is really awesome actually being here in Deauville. I didn't say it before, so thank you to everyone for having us. It's great. I also just love the town. Besides even the festival, the town is awesome. But yeah, so thank you. It was #1, which I think amazed all of us. It's very cool though that it's been received that well. And my advice, it's kind of weird because I almost feel like I'm still that person in a way. You know, it's like I'm constantly trying to kind of get films going, and this is my first one. So what's always worked for me, and I think what will continue to always work for me, is just go out and shoot stuff. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter if you have no budget, if you go and borrow someone's camera. I mean, obviously it depends on what department you want to get into, but if it's directing or especially screenwriting is the easiest. You can write as much as you want. If you want to direct, grab a camera and just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and just continuously shoot. and you are by definition a director then, even if no money's involved. So that's my advice for sure. You say it's almost overwhelming with imagery and sound. I don't know if I consciously try to do that, but I know that I am an incredibly visual person, and I mean I'm not a director who comes from like a directing theater or my experience with working with actors is also almost limited to an extent. I've got a lot more experience since doing the film now, but my real background is imagery. That's really what I love. I'm a visual artist, and I was aware in District 9 of putting as much design and thought into everything from the soldiers to the vehicles to the design of the alien technology to the way that the shots are actually photographed. All of that was very carefully sort of plotted and thought out, and I wanted it to be as rich and full of detail as possible. And I did the same thing with sound design as well. And I think that District 9 is an open world kind of an environment. It's like a mini version of Star Wars, where it feels like you could go off on many different tangents and many different stories. And I think that helps with the feeling that it's very sort of rich and very full of ideas, really. So yeah, that's me.
I wasn't pursuing acting as a career, and before this I wasn't an actor, so I don't have a great sort of explanation for you in terms of how I prepared. I had always done voices in my life and done characters based on different accents. And what I did with this, I suppose, was create a stereotype character based on voice, and from a lot of people that I had seen in old apartheid South Africa. And then the process was just almost stripping off that character. The process of making the film was the stereotype of that guy being stripped off by the situation he was in, the hardship of the situation he was in. And I also informed a lot from the prosthetics and the makeup by just looking at myself in the mirror and just realizing this would be a very unpleasant situation for the guy, but it would also affect him physically, it would make him stronger, etc. So it was sort of, you have a character and you just break him down. That was my experience. Yeah, being in the mud and the trash.